I'm Violet Hollopeter. I was born near Topeka, Indiana, on June 17th, 1915. Makes me kind of old.
Who were your parents?
My parents were Levi and Alice Yoder H.
What did they do for a living?
Well, I was born on a farm, and then after, when I was about 10 years old, we moved into the village of Emma, and my father was in business with his brothers at Topeka Roller Mill. They made they had made flour. They did make flour for Pillsbury, and mostly it was animal feed that they made.
Do you have any siblings?
I had one sister. She was 4.5 years older than I and was my boss for as long as she lived.
And you grew up in Emma?
I grew up in Emma, yes.
In the town?
And it was a good place to grow up. There were a lot of kids, and when we were teenagers, there were a lot of teenagers. And we'd get together in the evenings and have games and so on. It was a good place. Yeah.
There was a school there.
There was no school.
Where did you go to school?
Well, they're 3 miles west of, no, not 3 miles, 3/4 of a mile west of Emma was a red brick school. And that's where I went to school.
One-room school?
Yeah. And then high school had choice of either going to Topeka or Shipshewana. Shipshewana had a much better music department, and I chose Shipshewana.
How far was that?
I think it was 6 miles. 5 miles to Topeka, and I believe 6 to Shipshewana. But Topeka just had a music teacher that came in 1 day a week, and Shipshewana had a full-time music teacher.
How did you get to school?
Oh, on a hack.
My grandmother always called them that.
They weren't like the modern buses are today. It was a row of seats on either side of the bus, and then one about a foot off of the floor, going in the middle. One time, the principal didn't listen to a patron who called in, and he said there's this bad snowstorm coming, and he paid no attention to that and kept us. Well, of course, the buses couldn't get out of town, so we were farmed out to people in the town, and were there for several days. And my uncle came with a bobsled, and I think that's what a bobsled is, and with lots of straw on the bottom, and blankets and so on, and horses, and took us home. Just our busload.
You had an early interest in music.
Yes, I did. The family, my father's family, all sang, everyone. And then I played in the band, and so...
You played in the band?
Yes, I did. I played trombone.
You took lessons?
Oh, yes. You had to take lessons. And, we did march to when we had special things in Shipshewana, and which wasn't very... Shipshewana was just a sleepy little town then. Now it's a tourist attraction. And
what year did you graduate from high school?
1933.
Okay. And you decided you wanted to be a teacher at some point?
Yes. And I went to Manchester College, and then we were in the Depression, and we could go 2 years, take 2 years, and we were certified to teach. And if you taught 5 years and were successful, they gave you a life license on 2 years of training. Well, after I moved to here, well, I was just going to say that I married and Richard Hollopeter, and lived in LaGrange, and had 2 boys. And when Barry was a year old, we moved to Steuben County, because Dick had been working here and was driving back and forth to LaGrange. And so we moved, and that's how we came to be in Pleasant Lake.
Now, in 1933, when you graduated, as you said, that was the depths of the Depression.
Yes.
How did that affect your family, your parents? Do you have recollections
All right.
of that?
We knew that there was something, but there wasn't a lot of cash. We always had plenty to eat, and my mother was a wonderful seamstress, and she made most of our clothes. And but there wasn't a lot of cash.
Did they have money in the bank that they lost?
No, the bank that they used didn't close. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So.
Now, how did you meet Decalipeder?
Oh, through a friend. A friend introduced us, and he called me. I had never met him before, and asked me for a date, and we took off. 2 years later, we were married.
And what did he do for a living?
He was, he was with Farm Bureau and had the rural delivery in, the Salem, Pleasant Lake area. And so he stayed with the Farm Bureau until he retired.
Why did you choose Manchester College as opposed to anyplace else?
My sister had gone to Manchester.
Oh, good.
And I guess that was the reason. It wasn't too far away, and I could come home every couple weeks, about 3-4 weeks, and so it was a church school, and of course that appealed to my parents, and a smaller school.
Yeah.
So
your parents were religious?
they were brought up in the churches, and yes, they always went to church. Mm-hmm. And we were always taken to church. I know I should have, but I didn't go to school the first year I was out of high school. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. And so I didn't go that first year. And by the second year, I decided I better do something that was better paid than just, the little jobs you could get. And so that's the reason. However, I did, even though I had a life license. Should I jump ahead to
anything you want to talk about? Go right ahead.
I was going to say, when I started teaching at Pleasant Lake, when Clarence Chrysler was trustee, and back in those days, the trustees hired and fired the teachers, and I just, after we were living in Steuben County then, and Barry was going to be in first grade. So I told Clarence one day, I said, if you ever have a vacancy in third grade, I'd be interested in applying, because the boys would both be in school. And so he had a vacancy for me in third grade the next year. And that's where I was at Pleasant Lake 29 years.
You taught before you came to Pleasant Lake.
Oh, yes.
Where were you teaching then?
Well, now you'll laugh because you've never heard of Honeyville. Honeyville was a new consolidated school out in the middle of Eden Township in LaGrange County. And I had graduated from college and had a job the next year. And I was there for 6 years. And then I quit. I retired because, I was pregnant. That's the reason. And back then, people who were teaching resigned when they were pregnant. And they didn't hire married teachers. So that was, what else do you want to know?
So what year was it then you moved to Steuben County, approximately?
The spring of 47.
Now you lived on a big house on an old 27. Is that where you moved to originally?
No. Do you know where the turkey farm was? Out on Libby's Road, Favorites Road? No, you probably don't. Okay. There was a turkey farm there. I don't know who lives there. Rockwell's ended up living there one time. Well, anyway, he was manager of that farm and drove back and forth from LaGrange. And after 2 years, he thought I wouldn't want him to live over here on a farm. And I said, well, hey, I'd like to. So that's where we lived. And we lived there for 3 years. And then he saw the handwriting on the wall. The place was going to fail, the business. And so we bought the place on Old 27, between Pleasant Lake and Angola. And we lived there until, that was when he worked for Fire Bureau then, with the Petroleum Department. And we lived there until, let me think, 47, that was 47, 74, when we decided we wanted to downsize. It was just a small farm out there, I think 60 acres, but it was still, you had to keep the weeds mowed on the pastures and, a lot of work. So we sold that place and built this one. Okay. And moved here in 74.
When you started working so you were hired by Clarence Chrysler to work at Pleasant Lake.
Yes.
And that would have been what year?
51.
51. Do you have any recollection of how much you were paid to teach that first year?
No, I don't. I don't really, but it wasn't very much. Yeah. I know what I was paid when I first started teaching at Honeyville. $100 for 8 months, 8-month school. And not only that, I think I should tell you how many children we had. 43 and 44 children in a mixed grade.
You had 43 kids in your class?
Yes, we did. About half of them were Amish. And they were a joy to teach because they didn't send their children to school until they were 7 years old. There was no kindergarten then. And they were ready. And they were taught respect for teachers, respect for elders also. And it was a nice situation. We didn't feel overworked or anything by having 43 children, because Oh, that was Depression times.
Yeah.
$100 a month for 8 months.
So at Pleasant Lake, when you went there, now who was principal then?
John Smith was there as principal for his first year. He was there a few years, but not very long.
I never knew him, but I've seen his picture on the class photos.
Okay.
You got along well with him?
I'm sorry?
You got along well with him?
Oh, yes. Some people didn't like him, but that's school.
So who were some of your fellow teachers then?
All right, Yvonne Miller was teaching then in first grade. Berta McAlpin, second. I had third. Hilda Chrysler, across the hall from me, fourth. Lyda Favorite, fifth. Evangeline Florer, sixth. Seventh, I'm not sure. It might have been Thelma Shannon. And I don't know who it was.
Did you get to know the high school teachers very well?
Yes.
Because it's a small school.
Yeah, small school. And yeah, but I can't remember them like I do the elementary teachers. But, and I don't remember who was coach even at that time. I don't think Mr. Milholland was. Mrs. Milholland, I believe, was teaching at Scott Center or someplace like that, because I used to meet her going home at night. She'd be coming to Pleasant Lake. So,
now the high school that was there then, you were there and obviously in the same building. Did you have much interaction with them at all?
The high school?
The high school was upstairs.
Oh.
As I recall.
Oh. Yeah, I was the first. Well, I was right next to the office, and the teachers that were going upstairs came right by us. There was a 4-way fountain, drinking fountain, a square building in the middle of the room of the hall, and 4 drinking fountains on each side.
Now what was the school day? When did you start and finish? You recall?
Okay. We started in September.
I mean, what hours of the day?
Oh, the hours. The buses came about 8 o'clock, and school was in session by 8:30, and dismissed at, I think it was 3:30, but I'm not absolutely sure about that.
And you started in September, you finished by Memorial Day?
Yes. Yes. We were finished by Memorial Day. Mm-hmm. It's
Now, Walter Schubert became principal then.
Some more principals? Well, Art Ryan was principal for a while. I can't remember exactly who followed John Smith.
Was it Schubert? Walter.
Well, he was there. He might have. Yes, I think perhaps that's right. And then he was moved to Angola, and then was it Art Ryan maybe?
He came in there when it became just an elementary school.
Yes, he had taught there. And then Phil
Hull.
Hull, yes, thank you. And I believe he was. I didn't teach. I taught 3rd grade, yes, but I had different rooms. I think it was Art Ryan. Well, I know it was. He liked to move things. So one year he had me moved down to where Berta McAlpin had always been. And I was there for a year. And then another time he decided that he'd put me over where Hilda Chrysler was, across the hall from me. So I did that one year, and then back again. So, but he was a good principal. They were all good principals. And
tell me about Pleasant Lake back then in the
I'm sorry.
Tell me about Pleasant Lake back in the early 50s. Where did you go shopping in Pleasant Lake? What stores?
Oh, all right. We had choices. I counted up, I believe there were 4 stores that had groceries. There was Freddie Howard, I believe. Was that his name?
I'm not sure about that one. I don't know that name.
When we first came, and he had a nice little grocery store. I remember going in for, and one thing I wanted was brown sugar, and he pulled a big barrel or some kind out from under the counter, and it was, and then weighed out 5 pounds of brown sugar.
Where was his store?
Well, it was the road that goes back at the west end of the lake.
Okay.
His was on the east corner there.
Yeah, okay. And that's where, is that where Benny Everett's store would have been at one time?
Yes.
Yeah, same place?
Yeah.
Okay. You went to Imhoff's grocery store?
That was just a grocery store. And then Ted August had another grocery. Now, do you remember that at all?
Yes.
Okay. You know, at Imhoff's had what we called a dry goods store. They had, dry goods meant they had fabrics on bolts. And that was on one side of the store, and then the other side was groceries. And now, do you know where Imhoff's was?
Yes.
All right.
The building is there.
Is it?
Yeah, the building is still there.
Nothing in it.
It's been made into apartments, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now, those were, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I thought there was another one, but I can't think where it would have been.
You shopped at Ransburg's department store?
Oh, Ransburg's was, everybody shopped at Ransburg's. Yes, they had some groceries also. Yes, at that time. But at least once a year, they had a big sale, and people came from all over. And there was the customer, or I mean, people that were waiting to get in, long line out on the sidewalk before they opened. And they had good sales. They had shoes and men's clothing and well, just most anything you'd want, you could get at Ransburg's. And then next was to Ransburg's was a hardware store.
Who ran that, do you recall?
Herb Moore, yes. And that was a nice hardware store. We don't have hardwares anymore. I think the other large stores have taken over.
There was the Fuller's Garage was there.
Oh, yes. Fuller's Garage was, I think they had an automobile agency.
They did, they sold Chevys.
Okay, I remember that. And they were busy. And then, of course, there was a drugstore.
Don Johnson's drugstore.
A pharmacist. I'm right there. I think I'm right there.
What's that?
That there was a pharmacist.
Well, Don Johnson was a pharmacist.
Okay.
Then there was a community building.
A community building?
Yeah, it was for, I don't know why it was built originally, but they had community meetings there.
Oh. And then, of course, Chadwick's he had a business there. I don't remember what it was exactly. It's something to do with maps, I know.
Yes, they had a map business, right? I don't, it was a cartographer of some kind, I don't remember.
I don't know what it was.
The telephone office was down there.
Oh, yes. That's right, the telephone office. And I think there were some more businesses. Oh, the post office.
That building is still there.
Is it?
It's falling apart, but it's still there. You remember the doctor's office, Dr.
Yes, I remember when Dr. Sheffield and Shepherman. Yes, and Dr.
Before him was Dr. Alford.
Alford, yeah. Oh, and there was a barber shop.
Yes.
We were new in the community, and so I took it must have been Jack, up for a haircut one day, and I was amused. There was a big stove in it to heat, and on top of that was a tea kettle. So that was the water, the warm water he'd have for shaves, I suppose. But I thought that was funny. The two churches were very active at that time, and of course, Mr. Braden had been there for years and years and taught in the high school. I don't remember what he taught, but, and, oh, I know, what else could we talk about? What else do you remember? You remember more because you lived right there.
Well, I lived across the street from the school, yeah.
Yes.
I walked over to school every day.
Uh-huh. And so I love Pleasant Lake School. I always have, and I guess I always will. I'll have very good memories of Pleasant Lake. The last, maybe 12, 13 years, I don't remember just how many years, I did not teach third grade anymore, but the school system had put in a new reading program for children who had average intelligence and higher, but weren't performing to their potential. And so they hired Mary McCutcheon and I to do that. Mary had worked in it 1 year before I did, and so she went to all the elementary schools. And then the second year, I was in Pleasant Lake forenoons. Mrs. McCutcheon was at Henry Park forenoons, and then we were together at Carland Park in the afternoon. And I enjoyed that. We worked with just small groups, supposedly no more than 6. And these were bright kids, but just weren't, for some reason, they didn't get started on their reading, and they were handicapped. The easiest to remediate were first graders, and I would start with a group of bright first graders after New Year's, and it was easy to get them on the right track. They had to learn letters and letter sounds, and after that they could sound out words, and they took off.
Now you were in the elementary school, but did you go to the high school events, basketball games, and plays,
Oh,
things
yes.
like that?
Oh, yeah.
What were the social events of the school?
Oh, yes. The plays and the games, and yeah, that was our community.
You recall my brothers and sisters?
Do I recall them?
Yeah.
I had Lauren in school, but he's the only one besides you and Lee. But I knew the others, of course. Rollin? Yeah. Okay. I think he was, probably, let's see, about sixth grade when I started teaching. Because Jack was in fourth, and I believe he was in the class with John Brooks, Luann, okay. Galen was in high school, and I did not know your oldest brother, but I got to know Marilyn, and all right. Your other sisters,
Marcia and Maribeth.
And Mary Beth, of course, I remember. But Marcia, yeah. Marilyn. And, they were all nice kids. Mm-hmm. And you were all nice kids.
See?
Yeah, proof.
Yes. I had Lauren, I think the first year I taught at Pleasant Lake. Would he have been in the class with George Libby, Robert Shannon, John Gramling?
I recently got in touch with George Libby again. George Libby lives in Virginia.
Yes.
He got a PhD in wildlife management, farm management, something, I don't remember. But he was a college professor in Virginia.
I saw him when his brother died. They brought him, he was living in Fort Wayne at that time, and they brought him back to Mount Zion for the funeral and burial. And George was there so I got to talk to him. And then, first I had seen him for a long, long time. So, in the summer, we would have the three churches would go together and have Bible school. Mount Zion Baptist and what is now United Methodist. But at that time, the Mount Zion and the Pleasant Lake Church were EUBs, Evangelical United Brethren. Mm-hmm. And then they became United Methodists in '68, I believe. Pleasant Lake has always been a nice community.
Well, we're going to try to preserve some of the memories like the ones you were giving me today. So.
But I'm not telling you anything.
Oh, yes, you have. You got it on videotape? Video, anyway. Digital. So.
Well, there's so many things that I'll think afterwards. Now, I should have told them that.
We all do that.
The minstrels were always a big thing. With the Lions Club, yes. And I think Mr. All right, directed it. Fuller.
Oh, Gerald Fuller, yeah.
Uh-huh. He directed it, and I believe Maxine Wolf played the piano. And endmen were traded from one year to the next. But that was always well attended. Basketball games were well attended. And I think there was good spirit, a community spirit. And, they lost some of that, I think.
Yes.
After consolidation, when they lost the high school. And so, a few people were very much in favor of it, and there were a few that didn't like it.
Well, it was pretty much inevitable. It was going to happen one way or another.
Yes, it was. And that was when I decided I'd better, before that, I decided I'd better go back to school and get more education.
Oh,
And I did, and I got my bachelor's. I had not had a bachelor's before that at Goshen College. That was close enough that we could drive back and forth in the evening and Saturdays. And I also took a lot of classes at IU in Fort Wayne, and they would fly up. And also there was one professor that came from Ball State, fly up and just for the evening and go back. And then I got my master's at St. Francis and reading specialist certification at St. Francis. So
you did get a lot more education.
yeah, but you know, I kept some of the same old ways of doing some things that I did the first started school, teaching school. There were some things that had worked back then, and they still worked when I retired in '80.
Well, it's been a delight talking with you. There's so much information, and what we're doing here is, for this museum I'm trying to put together, we're going to have reminiscences of Pleasant Lake by lots of different people, mainly older people like us, but other people
Like us.
and put it as part of this museum we're putting together. So it'll be fun.
Well, I'll bet I'm the oldest one.
You are. Indeed. Now, Bertha Waymeyer is still around, but her mind is not good anymore.
No. No, I know. She's 3 years old.
Yeah, she's
3 years older than I. Yeah. And, but the last time I went to see her, I couldn't, she had to be gotten up, and she had been asleep, and I could see she wasn't very happy to see me. And I said, well, maybe I'd better just go home and come back another day. And she said, why don't you do that? I love that story.
A couple of years ago I was in there, and she knew who I was then, but she doesn't know me anymore.
Have you tried her lately?
I saw her, yes. The Lions Club went up to wish her happy birthday.
Oh.
And she turned 106. But
Oh, okay. That was just.
I think she knew what was going on, but she didn't know who I was anymore.
No. Sometimes I've gone to see her, and she doesn't make sense. So it's too bad because we were such good friends and had so much fun together
She was
years ago.
Big part of the community for many years.
Yes, she was.
She and
I'm sorry that she has to go through losing two sons. And, so, but I always have felt more like I was a native of Pleasant Lake than I am Angola. Yeah. Because it's just my community. The church is in that community, and I still go out to Mount Zion.
Yes, I know that.
Oh, you do?
Well, I don't go to Mount Zion, but John Brooks goes there. And,
Oh, yes.
and Dave Harpham and Dave.
Yeah, they do.
Talk about that.
And so I don't know what else to tell you.
Well, that's very good. That's a lot. Thank you for your time today.
Oh,
Hey. We'll be sure to put your furniture back where it belongs.
that was my privilege. Oh, thank you for coming out.
I very much enjoyed visiting with you. Thanks for having us.
I've always liked the Flowers kids.
See?
They were just nice kids, and I was very fond of your mother.
Yeah. Everyone was.
I used to go see her after she was in the nursing
Did you?
home. Now cut out I don't mean this should go in as part of the interview, but I just thought she was a wonderful person.
She was. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
coming.
having us. I'll let you know what we do with all of this. We're gonna,
I hope you take it along home with you.
well, we're going to edit it some.